One American soldier that may have walked away from his post. Critics asking if the U.S. just made a very bad deal. Even the president saying there's a chance that these detainees will go back to violence against Americans. Former Vice President Dick Cheney agrees with that strong possibility.
I think there's a distinct possibility that these five will, in fact, go back into the battle. When you have people this highly motivated, the deputy Taliban commander for defense, the deputy in their intelligence bureau, these are people that are most likely to go back and once again launch strikes or attacks against Americans, against our friends and allies in the region. I think the odds are that they will in fact do that, and that we'll end up paying another kind of price because of the transaction that's been negotiated here.
All right. Arizona Senator John McCain, a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Foreign Relations Committee, with me now, sir, and good morning to you and welcome back. There's a lot to go over here, and I appreciate your time, first of all, so thank you for joining us. The president in Warsaw about 2 hours ago suggested that the United States is committed to freeing prisoners of war. In your mind, was Bergdahl a prisoner of war, or was he a deserter?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but there's certainly allegations surfacing that indicate that Mr. Bergdahl was not captured on the field of battle. But I think the fundamental point here is that, in my friend Lindsey Graham's words, this is the Taliban dream team that they've just released. Mullah Omar now has his cabinet restored. These are the worst of the worst, the hardest of the hardest. Some of them are wanted for war crimes, responsible in at least one case for the deaths of thousands of Shiite Muslims. They were judged and appraised at Guantanamo on a periodic basis, and each time unanimously viewed as such high risk that they could not be released or sent back to any other country. I can't tell you how dangerous these people are. And by the way, they were selected by the Taliban. So we all are grateful that Sergeant Bergdahl is back, no matter what the reason for it. But what is the price we may pay or likely pay in the future in American blood in return for releasing these five hardest of hardcore jihadists who are not only Taliban but also Al-Qaeda?
On that very point, the president suggested he was asked about a real possibility they could engage in efforts that could be detrimental to the United States, suggesting they could harm Americans. That is a stunning admission. Now, he also said in the same sentence that he is confident we could go after them. What's your view?
Well, you know, let me get this straight. If they do commit bad things, i.e. attacking America, then we can go after them? Is that the kind of logic we use now when we release people who repeatedly were judged as high risk and returned to the fight? And by the way, 30% of those we have released have gone back into the fight, and we certainly haven't recaptured many of those because they're in very high-level positions in the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. I don't think the American people want their lives of their men and women in the military at risk on the premise that we could go after them again. Is that the American national security policy?
I know you know more about the government in Qatar than we do. I mean, what is their capability for tracking and following people?
Well, I think by the way, Qatar has notoriously played both sides of the street as far as Muslim extremists are concerned. But as far as I know, it's only for a year. We know no of the conditions under which they will be kept under, quote, surveillance. What does that all mean? We haven't even been told that. So
why, Senator, why do you make this deal as Commander-in-Chief?
On some misguided view that we're ending the war in Afghanistan, that this now is part of it, bringing the last person home. But, you know, the president may be ending the war in Afghanistan, but the Taliban and Al-Qaeda are not ending the war in Afghanistan. That's what's so incredibly bizarre about this whole premise. We are bringing our people all the way home and leaving Afghanistan to the tender mercies of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And that, in my view, is an incredibly dishonorable way of honoring the lives of those who have already